Viewers, who's ruling Australia? Who? Have you ever wondered why obvious national problems can remain visible for years, yet meaningful correction always seems delayed, diluted, redirected, renamed, reviewed, reframed, or administratively absorbed? Why solutions often appear slower than deterioration? Why acknowledgement rarely becomes accountability? That question deserves deeper examination because the issue no longer may be competence. It may be institutional self-preservation. And then slowly another recognition begins surfacing beneath the constitutional fatigue. Systems protecting themselves eventually begin treating truth as a threat. And that recognition changes the entire legitimacy structure. Because Australia's constitutional Christian inheritance assumed authority existed to serve truth, justice, stewardship, restraint, and the people. Authority was never intended to become its own highest priority. Yet once divine sovereign restraint weakens, once they start ignoring that they're unto God, a different behavioural pattern gradually emerges. Institutions begin measuring success through stability of perception, preservation of confidence, continuity of authority, reduction of political risk, and management of public reaction. And the paradox deepens further. The establishment continues speaking transparency, accountability, participation, consultation, and public trust, while increasingly operating through narrative management, procedural buffering, responsibility diffusion, strategic ambiguity, and administrative delay. And that inversion becomes psychologically significant because citizens eventually begin recognizing the difference between solving problems and managing awareness of the problems. And that's where political moral bankruptcy accelerates. Not when mistakes occur. Mistakes are inevitable. The pathology emerges when institutions become more committed to protecting legitimacy than confronting reality. Truth becomes expensive. Accountability becomes dangerous. Connection becomes destabilizing. Deterioration becomes something to be managed rather than repaired. And that behavioural shift creates a constitutional consequence. The population slowly loses confidence that authority remains primarily committed to truth. They're not committed to truth. Distrust spreads. Conscience hardens. Social cohesion weakens. And institutional language and lived experience increasingly separate. And that's why constitutional remembrance matters. Truth precedes narrative. Justice precedes reputation. Conscience precedes administration. Stewardship precedes self-preservation. And God stands above government. And those principles once prevented public authority from becoming psychologically dependent upon its own survival. And the issue confronting Australia is therefore no longer simply whether institutions possess power. The deeper issue is whether institutions still possess sufficient moral integrity to sacrifice comfort, reputation, and political convenience when the truth demands it. Because every establishment eventually faces the same test. whether it exists to protect itself or whether it exists to serve realities higher than itself. And somewhere beneath the procedural continuity, another truth steadily emerges. The constitutional fracture becomes visible when institutions begin treating exposure as a greater threat than the deterioration exposure is revealing in the politicians.